Superman number 6, written by George Perez, Keith Giffen, and Dan Jurgens. Art by Nicholas Scott, Keith Giffen, and Dan Jurgens, though I think those last two are strictly for the last page of this book. So last issue we left off with Superman, quote-unquote, dropping a reporter from the top of the Daily Planet and the real Superman waking up in space with a bunch of bugs on him. This issue picks up immediately after he drops the reporter, and Supergirl swings in to save him and straight up says, hey, this issue takes place immediately after Superboy number 6, because she references how she ran into a clone of Superman and came right here to talk to Clark. And so the next 4 pages on this are just an extended fight scene of Superman being like, oh, you are not supposed to be here yet. My plan will have to adjust accordingly. Bam, 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 shoot with heat vision. Repeat 3 times. And Lois Lane is freaking out like, oh my god, people in the helicopter, stay back, but make sure you keep getting this. I have to make sure I don't lose any reporters today. And somehow, as we established in the last page of the last book, Superman is able to hear Lois just screaming out for Clark. And as it turns out, in space, he's having a mind meld with this fake Superman down on Earth. And as he's regaining consciousness, the fake Superman is struggling to maintain his composure or whatever. So Supergirl manages to land a few punches. And while that's going on, the real Superman's able to look into this fake Superman's mind and basically see the history of it. And apparently it was a homeworld called Jazur that relied very heavily on nanobots. And they are able to basically fix anything. If something broke, the nanobots just immediately fixed it. If the citizens themselves on this planet were killed or hurt in any way, the nanobots could just straight up repair them. They were perfect. So the Collector of Worlds from the Action Comics arc that's still going on apparently collected their planet because it was such a big deal that he had this basic immortality thing. But because it was incompatible with his current system or something, the planet as he collected it exploded, but a few itty-bitty tiny nanobots survived, went onto the armor that Clark picked up in the Collector's ship, and he's like, oh, I've had you around with me for literal 5 years now. Huh. And so he's coming to this realization, telling him to get out of his head. They have a little mind fight for a second as Supergirl is literally fighting him down on Earth. It just keeps going. Honest to God, it just keeps going here. And apparently one of the things is that General Lane is now okay, there's a superpower fight in the middle of Metropolis. We're going to go level the city with nuclear bombardment. I gotta call my daughter and tell her to get out. And she's like, don't you do that. You just let Superman do his thing. God. So as the fight's going on, Superman from space comes down and gets the nanobot Superman and just picks him up and takes him out. Just straight up not dealing with it anymore. Supergirl is recovering for a second. And Superman stands over the town and he's like, hey, everyone, just letting you know, this is a fake Superman. I'm the real Superman. And I'm going to go deal with this. Okay, cool. Is everyone good? So he immediately just zooms off because he also sees the planes coming to drop the nuclear bombardment. And so as soon as he zooms off, they're like, well, I guess we have no reason to bomb the city anymore. Turn around. So he goes all the way up to the Arctic, or maybe down to the Antarctic, hard to tell. And he basically recaps, exactly how anything that happened. And 5 years ago, he came back with his new fancy suit, his armor, and he had the nanobots on him, and the nanobots actually, went into him. But the nanobots were all about adaptation. So they were adapting to Superman this entire time. And mind you, he's explaining all this while he's just beating the ever-loving crap out of this fake Superman. So apparently when he used his heat vision, the nanobots were in the lasers and were adapting to the extreme heat of it, thus causing the fire monster. When he used his cold breath, it automatically adapted to the coldness of it, or at least the windiness of it, thus making that ice monster thing. And then, when he was using his super senses of seeing and hearing, the nanobots somehow came out there and adjusted to like Superman's ability to see, therefore making the invisible monster, which I believe Superman puts it best here in a quote, "How did that make any sense?" Wholeheartedly agree. So anyway, that's all the stuff that happens. And as he's fighting the Superman, he's just like basically transforming into dust. Like he's just completely disintegrating. Why now? I don't know, but he is. So he beats the crap out of Superman, dissolves into dust. Fake Superman, I should say. And then Supergirl shows up and is like, "Oh, hey, that was quite a bit you did to that alien imposter." And Superman's like, "It's no big deal. Were you talking about me having a clone?" And he's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Also, how did you hear that? I was saying that to the alien thing." It's like, "Oh, we had a mind meld in space." So anyway, McCoy gets on TV, apologizes for being so hard on Superman, and then tries to cash in on the fact that he was dropped off a building by Superman. The woman who turned into the ice monster is sitting in a hospital bed. Clark's there by her side, and apparently she's like, "Hey, you don't really have any feelings for me, do you?" And he's like, "No, I know that you do," which is more than I ever got from that, because I genuinely couldn't tell they ever had a thing. But she's like, "Oh, it's okay, Clark. I know that one day you'll find the woman who's right for you," as Lois Lane is standing outside the door, and I guess that's what we're supposed to get from that. And there's a one-page epilogue here of the events of Stormwatch number 5, I think, of the planet, like the spaceship crashing out of orbit or whatever. A part of it falls to Earth, lands in the Arctic or Antarctic, and goes to something steps out and is going to a Damonite outpost and is activating it. And that's it. It just says Damonite outpost activated. Sure, whatever. I cannot stand how this ended. This was so just that you had to have Superman literally say, "That doesn't make any sense." Just sums up my feelings with this entire thing. Mind you, that entire fight scene, like both fight scenes between Supergirl and between the fake Superman, they were just constantly talking. Like the first one had the guys in the newscopter be like, "Oh, that's quite a hit on Supergirl, and she comes back with a right hook." It's like, shut up. Just shut up. Why do I need this? Just let the art tell me what's happened. I don't need to... And then the same thing's happening in the end, but at least that's just full-on exposition of explaining what the hell I've been reading for 6 issues now. I really don't like this arc as a whole, and fortunately or unfortunately, due to the history of how George Perez was treated during the writing of this, he is off after this issue. So hopefully we can get something better out of it, but I don't blame the writer for that as much as I blame the situation he was in. Just Google it if you need to. As for this particular book, I'm giving it a 4, mainly for art. The art is okay to look at. There's nothing that's like bad about it. I understood everything it was going for. It didn't confuse me in any placement of anything. It's just the writing that was awful. Like truly abysmal. So overall 4. I'm so happy we're getting something different next issue.